With the count now totaling at least 18 Democratic lawmakers saying he shouldn't run again, Biden says he's still the one for the job. Joining me now is a familiar face to power in politics. Bruce Heyman is the former U.S. ambassador to Canada. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you. Good to be with you today.
So you've just issued a statement. You praised Joe Biden. You called him competent and compassionate. But you also say it's time to consider alternative presidential candidates. Why are you ready to move on from the president now, sir?
So as you said, I've known Joe Biden for more than 15 years. I traveled with him to Vancouver and to Ottawa in his trips to Canada while I was the U.S. ambassador. He swore me in as U.S. ambassador. I truly like him, and I truly believe he's been an amazing president these last 3.5 years. And I am deeply aligned with his values. That being said, he is not at a strength level, and he is not in a place where I think he can effectively compete for this nomination and fulfill a 4-year vigorous term as president of the United States of America. The most important job in the world, I believe. Now, the competition in this particular election is fierce, and the importance of it should never be underestimated. Donald Trump represents the greatest threat to democracy, the greatest threat to world peace, and to the Canada-U.S. relationship. And I will do whatever I can, obviously legally, to make sure Donald Trump is not the next president of the United States. And if it is Joe Biden, I'll work very hard for Joe. But he's losing his base. We're seeing it not only in polls, but we've seen it in articles written by editorial in the New York Times and Washington Post and many other newspapers across the country. I've been in conversations for the last 2 weeks with many Democratic donors, former ambassadors, and just every average American who walked away from the debate 2 weeks ago and basically came away with 7 or 8 out of 10 saying we need to make a change. So I needed to stand up and say what a lot of people are saying behind closed doors, on Zoom calls and quietly. And I thought I'd say it out loud because I think this is just too important a time.
So what's motivating the anxiety on those Zoom calls? Is it his age? Is it that he looks more infirm? I mean, as you said, you've worked with him for years. Do you notice a decline? Do you recognize this Joe Biden? Is there a difference from how you knew him?
He is significantly different than he was just 4 years ago or 2 years ago. I think watching him at the debate, and I have been in touch with a number of people who have been to fundraising events in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, New Jersey, Florida, and all of them have come back saying something very similar. He speaks from a teleprompter, takes very little questions, looks very much his age, and they were concerned about the fragility of how he was walking and how he was behaving. He seemed frail. So this is going to be a tough campaign, and it's going to be an intense several months to win the presidency. But I do believe, given the circumstances of the world today, it's going to be probably a difficult presidency regardless. And so I think it's time to move pass the torch on to a new generation. And I know we have a few short weeks, but he seems to have substantially changed over just the last few months, in my view.
You mentioned donors. That is a major concern for the president. Money, it is for any political candidate. You're well connected in those circles. Have you heard of donors pulling back their cash? Is there a chance that his weak performance as of late has torpedoed his fundraising efforts?
I have not had direct conversations with an individual who has told me that they have paused. That being said, as reported in the U.S. this last 24 hours, there's a $90 million PAC that was put together to support him, where much of that money is in pause mode. George Clooney and others in Hollywood have come together. Rob Reiner, Ashley Judd, and others have come together just in the last few days and have said it's time for him to move along. They are big-time fundraisers for the Democratic Party and for the president. So I would suspect it's going to be difficult There was a scheduled fundraiser for the president during the Democratic convention that it is my understanding that has now been canceled. So I think he's going to be in a more challenged time period for fundraising. That being said, he did see a robust amount of small dollar donations that came in more recently.
Speaking of the convention, it's just 5 weeks away. Is there really time to have some sort of leadership contest to replace Biden? Is it even viable at this point? It is quite late in the game.
Not going to be easy. Make no mistake about it. I just watched France go through an election over 6 weeks. I've watched what the UK would do and in just changing its government. So is it possible? Absolutely. Will it be difficult? No doubt. But I think it could be really exciting and energizing. And that's what the Democratic Party needs right now. We need to energize our youth, our base of our party across the country. We need to energize Democrats and independents and Republicans who don't want to support the MAGA Donald Trump. We need to get them excited and energized. And I think that we have an opportunity to do that over these next 6 weeks.
Speaking of Trump, a number of Democrats are saying, don't turn your back on the president. He's done so much for the country. What he needs right now is our support. And this sort of chatter is just a gift to the Republicans and Trump. We have to rally around Joe Biden to beat this guy. That's the sort of rhetoric that's happening, that's coming from the other side of this debate. Why are you taking a different approach? Why do you think it's important to speak out now, really, against Biden?
So I'm a student, as you can imagine, of these elections and pay very, very close attention. I worked hard on the American Voter Abroad effort for the Biden campaign in 2020. If you look at the states, there's 7 or so swing states. We call them battleground states. These are critical for the president to win, to hold on to his presidency. He is deeply behind in several of them. He is behind in several others and slightly behind in others. I will tell you, he's in a really tough spot to be able to pull off getting 270 electoral college votes right now. And so I think it's the right time to do it. It's hard. And by the way, if he is the nominee, I'm going to work hard calling every American in Canada to go to votefromabroad.org and vote to keep Donald Trump from being the next president. But another thing, Republicans are very quiet right now. Did you notice Donald Trump has not even been out talking about this the last 2 weeks? The last thing the Republicans want is to replace Joe Biden. They even said they're going to sue if he's not the nominee of the Democrats. Can you imagine? They have worked 3.5 years to angle against Joe Biden and with his son and with all of the things that unfortunately we saw during the debate. And so I think this is a tremendous opportunity for Democrats to take the advantage.
Just quickly, do you think Canadians should be concerned about all this? When we turn our eyes south, we're seeing some instability. You know, what's your message to the people in this country who are watching all of this unfold?
I have said for weeks, the biggest concern the Canadians should have is the re-election of Donald Trump, who has said that he will round up immigrants around our country, which I fear may run north. He has said he's going to put a 10% tariff on all imported goods. He has said that, and his party has said they will ban abortions where women are seeking care may have to go north. He has said he's going to take away environmental standards. He has said he's dismantling much of the U.S. government as we know it. Look, that's a threat to Canada, a direct threat. Mm-hmm. And so I need Americans living in Canada to register. You should just register today. Go to votefromabroad.org and vote. You see, Canada and the Canadian government can do nothing with our election. Shouldn't. It's improper. But Americans living in Canada may actually be the solution that we need.
All right, Bruce Heyman, let's leave it there. Thank you so much, sir. Former U.S. Ambassador to Canada. Thanks for coming on, sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. Be well.